Entrepreneur power couple Breanne Dyck and Jill Joevenazzo join us to help us answer. How do you structure your business for dramatic yet sustainable scale?
With more than 20 combined years of experience in operations, finance, team building, business development, adult learning, and product development, Breanne and Jill of MNIB Consulting have helped hundreds of entrepreneurs structure their businesses for dramatic yet sustainable scale.
In this episode, Breanne and Jill share why $200K to $300K per year is one of the hardest revenue levels to be at in business, and what they learned from being stuck at that level in their business.
We also discuss the myth of the unsustainable, unscalable service business and how to effectively work with your loved one and performance manage them if you need to.
So if you're wanting to know how to scale your business sustainably and work with your loved one successfully, make sure you pay attention. Welcome to Founders Connect podcast. We help lifestyle entrepreneurs to grow their business online and create a happier marriage.
Did you know that approximately 45% of marriages end up in divorce and 65% of all startups fail due to founder conflicts? Well, we're here to change that.
Each week we bring you an inspiring guest and practical tips to help you with business, relationships, and sustainable living. Now let the fun begin. Hi, I'm Cindy Pham.
And I'm Anthony Chansamuth.
And we're from Founders Connect.
Today, we are talking about how to structure your business for dramatic yet sustainable scale. And we've brought on two experts to talk about that. We've got lovely Breanne Dyck and Jill, her partner, Jill Joevenazzo. That's
there we go.
There you go, all the way from Italy, but not really.
Not really.
A couple generations removed.
That's exactly right. And so just a bit of a background about these two amazing beings. Breanne began NIB Consulting in 1990. I love that. As a boutique consultancy helping online training businesses craft better learning experiences. Her work with clients, including Chris Gillibo and Tara Gentili, now McMullen, who we interviewed on episode 4,
Yes.
led to the publication of her best-selling book, Beyond Satisfaction, which I actually read on and really I've been sharing that around with different people. When Jill officially joined MNIB Consulting in 2016, her discerning perspectives and skills as a biz ops specialist and cross-functional integrator, oh my gosh, proved the perfect complement to Breanne's keen insights and expertise in online coaching, consulting, and service-based businesses. With more than 20 combined years of experience in operations, finance, team building, business development, adult learning, and product development, Breanne and Jill have helped hundreds of entrepreneurs structure their businesses for dramatic yet sustainable scale. So you two are a powerhouse couple. I love this. Welcome to the show.
Welcome.
Thank you so much.
So before we get into all the business stuff, let's learn a bit about each of you as individuals. Cindy.
So, from 1 to 10, how weird are you? Shall we go with Breanne first?
See, my answer to everything is it depends. If anyone has heard me for any amount of time, they're always going to know my answer is it depends. If you find that answer weird, then I guess I'd be a 10. And if you find that completely normal, then I'd be a 1. Let's go with a 7.67592.
So really, you should have us actually doing this for each other, and then you get the actual answer.
All right. Well, let's do that. Jill, what out of 1 to 10, what's Breanne on the scale of weirdness?
On a scale of weirdness, I'd say a good solid 8.
Oh!
Why do you give her that number?
She's got a little bit of kooky in her that just kind of, sometimes makes things really interesting. And, in a fun way, interesting at least.
Beautiful. And Breanne, what's Jill's number?
Jill's weirdness. I really want to give my it depends answer. So on a weird day, she's probably up around an 8. On an average day, though, I don't think she's that weird. I think she's probably like 3 to 4.
Oh, that's interesting.
Well, it looks like Jill wanted a more than a 4.
I think she's
Like 5 on average.
So what would be your favorite quote? Jill this time.
Oh, my favorite quote. See, now here's where I come out with the it depends. I don't know. I'm going to have to go with an oldie but goodie. Do or do not. There is no try.
Master Yoda.
Master Yoda.
One of our favorites. How about you, Breanne? Do you have a quote that inspires you or motivates you?
Is it cheesy if I quote myself? Because I kind of want to quote myself.
Well, yeah. Hey, sometimes.
Why not?
Yeah.
My life's philosophy and therefore favorite quote is, there is always a better way.
Oh, there you go.
There is always a better way.
Yes.
But sometimes we get stuck and we can't see it. So that's what we're going to talk about.
That's right.
So who's been your greatest mentor? Let's start with Breanne, in life or career, and what did you learn from them?
Oh boy. It's hard to answer a question like that because I've had so many different mentors in so many different areas. Growing up, just thinking about some drawing that I've been doing. I've been doing some portrait drawing, which if anyone's connected with me on Facebook, they would have seen the progress of some of my portraits that I'm drawing. And I shared a quote, to speak of quotes, which was, I think it's originally Bob Ross, but it came to me through my grandma, which is, you have to have light to show dark and dark to show light. And that's really true in art, but I found it to be a good guiding principle for life. And I mean, on the business side, business and personal are so intertwined, which I know we'll talk about here as we go forward. I've had so many great friends and mentors. I almost wouldn't want to name any in case I was like the Academy Awards, right? It's like, I'm afraid I would miss someone. Most recently, I would say on the business side, we've been working with Phyllis Wilson, who's been awesome. Angela Loria, worked with her a lot last year. And going back to Tara Gentili, who we mentioned, Tara McMullen now. She's been married for 6 months, so I still have to reprogram that. A lot of powerhouse women who have really shaped different aspects of the way that I see and approach business and life.
How about you, Jill?
In a similar way as with Breanne, I've had so many mentors over the years. In a lot of ways for me, I actually approach things more from it's going to sound a little bit odd, but I'm going to cherry pick the things that resonate with me most from all these different sources and make it my own. Right. So it's kind of hard to articulate who would be a greatest or who would be, the one kind of above all else. Like Breanne, call out to Phyllis, who's our current mentor of both of Breanne and myself, who's been helping us a lot. But aside from that, just from that being like a most recent thing, like all the way through growing up, I did a lot of horseback riding as a child and coaching and teaching in that aspect. And it's always been one of those things where it's just all these different little places to find little things. And kind of like how Breanne mentioned with the quote of, dark and light and how she can apply that to business. I find that happens across the entire spectrum. Business, life, personal, all of that. You can take one thing from somewhere and apply it totally different place and it makes sense still. And it totally still applies. So that's about the best answer I can give you.
No, that's a great answer. I'm curious about your horse riding, and are you still doing it?
No, not anymore. Actually, my horse just passed away. We just a couple months ago. So.
Yeah. So what has been sort of a life lesson, if you will, that's come from horse riding?
Listening, learning how to listen, because horses don't speak like we do. So you have to learn to listen to them. And so many of those lessons I've been able to take and apply them to people, and how to listen to people when they're talking to me, which is wonderful that I'm actually in this particular business, because that's what I get to do. I get to listen to people.
That's great.
I think that's a foundational skill for anything.
For everything, really everything. If only people listen more, eh?
There you go.
So if you have all the time and money in the world, what would you do? Breanne?
Someone asked me this the other day. Well, it's probably, the days are all running together. It's probably about a month ago now that they asked. And it was like, if you were to win the lottery, how would that change your business? Because of course it was in a business conversation. And the answer that I gave there, I think applies here. Like if I had all the time and money in the world, what would I be doing? And I don't know that things would look much different than they do right now, because the thing that's, I don't want to say impeding, because I believe that growth is always moving forward. So it's not that my growth is being impeded, but the thing that is limiting the speed of growth and change in my life right now, in my relationships and in the business and all of those things, it's not time or money. That's not the limiting factor. It's who I am and how ready I am for whatever life has to bring. And so you could give me more time and money and I'd probably just make a mess of it. Whereas right now, with the time and money that I have, I'm able to grow in a way that is really pushing me at this level and speed that I am at a capacity to be able to take. So I wouldn't actually want I wouldn't want someone to just drop more time and money on me, because I would be robbed of the lessons that I'm learning right now.
That's quite deep, I guess, really. Would you say that would be kind of like your mindset in that sense?
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. there's days when it's like, I really could go for, some more money right now. Time isn't actually usually a thing. Usually it's the other way around. It's like, what am I going to do with this time? That's the bigger trap, is that, we talk about sustainable, scalable businesses, and our clients usually come to us with the problem of, I don't have enough time, right? I'm working too much. I'm in over my head. Or more than that, it's like, I'm spending all my time on the stuff I hate because they've given over the stuff that they actually love to their clients and that kind of thing. I'm not in that situation. I'm almost in the other situation, which is that I have to be more conscious and intentional about where I spend my time, because otherwise it's really easy for me to just like while away the hours because things, I have this expanse of time. It's easy for me to get on this conversation, podcast, talking about this stuff and sound deep and esoteric and all this kind of stuff. And I would say, is that my mindset all the time? No. Is that the mindset that I am increasingly trying to cultivate and live within? Yes. And I think, I don't want to keep talking forever. If you let me, I'll just talk forever. So I'll cut myself off here shortly so that Jill can get word in edgewise. But I mean, when you and I set up this conversation, it was in response to something I had shared on Facebook, which was that even if you go back 6 or 8 months ago this year, and you had asked me, like, if you had all the time and money in the world, where would you be? And I would have gone right to that money answer. And I would have given you like the laundry list of like, oh man, I would spend it on this and I would do this and like this would change and that would change and all these things. Because earlier this year, money felt hard.
Yeah.
And it really was seeping into my pores and coming out in all of these kind of negative, nasty ways. And really being able to shift that and understanding where I am on my own growth path and own growth trajectory has allowed me to be a lot more grateful and appreciative of where things are, which of course makes me more receptive to receiving more as well.
Receiving, that's important. When you're ready to receive, the universe provides.
And how about for you, Jill? What's been sort of your journey around, what would be your answer to that question? So all the time and money in the world, what would you be doing?
I'm actually very similar to Breanne. All the time and money in the world, I'd be right here. We actually just moved out to Vancouver Island here this past year. And that's been a big dream of ours for the last, Brie, 10 years? Something like that.
Yeah.
Dream come true.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So I can't even really think of, actually, no, sorry. There's one thing. We would finish the renovation downstairs so we'd have a proper guest room. Just saying, because, when the parents show up and we have to kind of get, you have to kind of give up the master. There's got to be a bed for the parents when they come to visit,
Yeah.
But aside from that, like, I'm happy where I am. I think we are where we want to be. And one of the things that I've said to Breanne a couple of times, I've said to a number of people, I actually don't like wishing. I don't like wishing because wishing feels like I'm not taking action to get it, or that I'm waiting for it to just happen to me. And so I try not to spend my time wishing for some things, or wanting, actually, is a conversation that Breanne and I have been having lately, of grasping after things. That's the connotation that wanting has for me, right? And so going back to that receiving thing, I'm very happy with where I am. And do I wish that there was, maybe a bit more flexibility and money to, do the however many $1,000s of renovations that we have that we want to do on this house instantly? Sure. But I don't need them.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I'm happy here, and being happy is more important to me than anything else.
That's right. The most important. That's for everyone, really, but they just get overwhelmed, and instead they just totally go the opposite.
We have this cultural narrative that money buys happiness, right? Because when we ask the question, what would you do with more time or money? People are going to give the answer that they think will make them happy. They're not actually chasing, if I had more time, I would travel. If I had more money, I would travel. I don't know.
I'd buy a home on an island.
Yeah, right. But they're not actually chasing necessarily the travel or living on an island. They're chasing how they think it'll make them feel.
Yeah.
Well, and not only that, but you start to get doing the same thing as The Simpsons, right? I see someone else doing this and it looks like it makes them happy, so it's got to be able to make me happy. Do you know that that's actually going to make you happy? Is that something that's going to be intrinsically valuable for you? That's a totally different conversation.
Yeah.
Absolutely agree. So how did I want to go back, you've mentioned that it's taken you 10 years to get to this place and onto this island. And I've been to Vancouver Island, so I know how amazing it is. So let's talk about vision for a moment and alignment of vision and goals, because that's something that, I mean, as a couple, Cindy and I have been working through the last 4 days on. And I see this, one of the reasons founders or co-founders break up is because it's misalignment in values or vision, and they can't seem to get themselves looking in the same direction. So how have you two been able to navigate that? And take us back to when you first joined the company, Jill. Like, what was that like for you? Why did you decide to join?
Do we have to talk about this?
Is that okay? I'm just curious.
No, it's fine.
This is something that comes up a lot for our community because, couples working together, or sometimes one person is not in the business, and that's okay. But it's always around this: what's the vision and what's the combined vision for your relationship and for your life, not just for your business.
Yeah.
So, how have you two been able to work through that, and has that changed over the years?
To be clear, I'm totally happy for Jill to answer this question. Because I know we did it not as well as we could have, and because we see the same thing with our clients, and we try and help them do better than we did. But I want to hear Jill's answer too.
Oh dear, so the pressure's on now. I see. Okay, so let me take a step back to 2016. Why did I want to leave the company, or why did I want to join the company? More to the point. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed where I was working. I was working in post-secondary at the time, managing a technical support team that dealt with enterprise-wide software. And, it was enjoyable. I loved my team. We got along great, but I didn't see myself there long-term. I didn't see myself really being able to grow there the way I wanted to. And moving into the company was always something that Breanne and I had kind of tossed around as, it would be nice to, and then we could maybe, because we bounced ideas off each other all the time. And I see this all the time with our clients, right? They come in, whether or not the spouse is actually formally, and I'm using that word in quotes here intentionally, formally involved in the business. So many times people just end up discussing the business with their spouse, significant other partner, whatever word you want to use, and using them as a sounding board or as a, what do you think about this anyway? Right? And so we had been doing that for years at that point. So it was kind of like the next evolution, because for me, it was a chance for me to take the skills that I had been building and just turn and apply them. I like trying things differently and applying things differently. This is why Breanne and I get along so well, right? She takes all the different pieces and figures out how they go together. And I actually like taking and figuring out how to apply them. So she figures out the what and I figure out the how, right? So it was just kind of a natural extension for us to go that way when the business was ready for it. That's kind of what happened in early 2016. How that affected us is an interesting question. The first, I'd say 6 months were rather fun, shall we say.
We realized that we didn't speak the same language. All the time, I thought we'd both been speaking English, and I was speaking a different version of English than Jill was.
Totally different versions of English. We would go, she would give me, a project to work on. I'd be like, yeah, perfect. I got this. This makes total sense to me. I'd go off, I'd do my work. I'd come back to her with the finished project. And she goes, that was not what I was looking for. Or what I thought you were going to do, or, those kinds of things. And that led to a lot of tension and a lot of stress, I'll be honest. But that's one of the biggest things I like for people listening to this. If you're thinking of bringing your spouse in, if you're thinking of bringing anyone in, but definitely your spouse, communication is key. And being sure that you guys are talking about the same thing is even more key. Because you can talk about, I want you to do, and what was one of the projects we were working on, Breanne? I'm trying to remember. It was a plan.
It was, making a plan, and what Jill understood a plan to be and what I had as a plan. I will say one of our best inventions came out of those disagreements, which was the Jill will make Breanne behave contract.
Yes.
Which was, we were at a coffee shop working one day, and we were sitting, Jill had her notebook, and we had just had one of these discussions about, what I thought I meant by a plan and what she had thought I meant by a plan. And it worked out that what he ended up doing was she wrote down this paragraph, which is, I, Breanne, would you promise to, I don't even remember what the terms of it were, but I had to countersign, and when I requested an alteration to one of the clauses, we had to initial it.
We made amendments to this little contract, yeah.
And a little tongue in cheek, but it was a good exercise for us to go through. But I also, from my perspective, not speaking the same language was one thing, but I didn't know what I wanted Jill to be doing in the business. And it took us almost the let's say a full year, from all the way through 2016, maybe even all the way through 2017, for us to really come to a place of, is this Breanne's business and Jill is helping? Or is this our business and What does that look like? How does that change? And for me to be even able to be in a place myself to be able to answer that question of like, is this my business? Is this our business? Because it had been my business for 10 years.
Yeah.
You are listening to the Founders Connect podcast, helping lifestyle entrepreneurs to grow their business online and create a happier marriage. Now back to the show.
I had to figure out this is something we talk a lot with our clients. What relationship did I want to have to the business? What relationship did I want to have to the team, of which was Jill a part, or was Jill like kind of outside of that? What relationship did I want to have to the clients? And how did having, Jill came in and started picking up a lot of client work, and how did that shift the relationship with the clients? And how did I evolve in relationship to all of those things? If I were to look at it now and say, like, what would I do differently? I mean, just knowing what I know now about how those relationships shift and evolve, I hope we would have been able to short circuit a lot of those challenges that we had early on, to go to your question about vision, because Jill joined the business out of opportunity, not out of some grand contribution to some designed big picture vision. And that's something that we learned early on and that we've really seen in service of helping our clients not make those same missteps. That number one, whose vision is it? Is it my vision, Breanne's vision as the original founder? Is it our collective vision, or is it the collective vision? Is it the vision of the business, which is something actually that's separate from both Jill and I? And it takes on its own identity and its own life, and it has its own vision for what it can become. And then we're the stewards of that.
And I think that was a critical piece, actually, was making that transition into that the business has its own vision, and that vision is separate from not even just us as individuals and our vision, but our vision as a couple and where we wanted to end up and how we wanted to end up interacting as a couple within the business, not just as, co-founders within the business.
I mean, that's a huge insight, like just a separation between the business vision and the couple vision and then the individual visions. Like, these are all different, let's call them entities, and they need to be respected as such. Because I think once we try and, merge them all, and then they become this gooey jelly thing, and it's very confusing, not only for us as the people working in it, but then for our clients, as you say, and also for the rest of the world is looking at it and going, well, what are you guys really about, and what's the business about? Yeah.
So we call that the cloud of confusion.
Yeah.
you create a cloud of confusion. And I'll be completely honest. We've seen this. I've got a client that we're helping through this right now. That it comes very much from my experience being the founder, being the business, having that identity to be the same thing. And so, I bring Jill in, we bring in other team members, we shift the way that we work with clients, we do all of these things. And without having those separation of, I wasn't intentionally separating the identities because at the time I didn't know that was a thing. It created a cloud of confusion, which the analogy I like here is you think of a planet with space junk all around it. And you've got like these, photons or whatever that are trying to like penetrate the atmosphere. And the light's trying to get through. These are your leads, right? These are your sales. These are the people that want to work with you. And they hit this space junk and they just keep bouncing off this cloud of confusion. And inside you're suffocating because you're not getting the light. You're not getting, smog and, dark, and you're not getting the light. It's like the world from the Matrix where you blotted out the sun. And it's that cloud of confusion causes this situation where you're just suffocating. You're not getting the sales, maybe aren't coming like they used to or like you expected. You're suffocating personally. You're suffocating in your relationships. And until that cloud of confusion can be cleared, which happens by figuring out what these different entities are and what the relationships between them actually are, you can end up in a lot of trouble if you don't attend to those entities as entities and the relationships between them.
I was going to quote from that post that you actually put up, because it's very relevant. Well, this is what the discussion is actually about. Yeah. So what have been sort of your top 3 lessons, after 6 years of building your business and reaching that 200 to 300K milestone, annual revenue, whatever it may be? I know a lot of people, that ties into my next question about scale, but let's start there. Let's go one lesson from each of you around what you've learned about getting to that stage in the business. How about we start with, we'll go Jill first.
Go Jill.
Oh, sure. Make me go now. What's the one biggest lesson about that? That's a good question. There's so many different ones. I guess for me, the biggest thing is to make sure that you're being honest with yourself about where you are as compared to where the business is. Because it's really easy for us as entrepreneurs to get into this I am the business mindset. And then as such, there is this aspect of I become the business. And you get so buried in being the business that it's hard to take the step back and to be able to actually grow in a sustainable way, because you're so much of the business that you take more and more and more on yourself, and it's not sustainable. You burn out, you hit the wall.
And even if you try and bring other people in, they never actually get in.
No, which you can't, because you are still the business. You are still this large piece of it, and you just can't give over control of any of those pieces.
Could you contextualize that? How did you learn that lesson? I'm curious about the actual event or events that led up to you realizing, okay, that's what's going on here.
So most of this actually is contextualized from watching Breanne and having her go through this and being the spouse on the outside trying to support her as she became the business, and what that looked like and how she dealt with it and how that impacted us as a couple, how that impacted us as individuals, and just going through that entire aspect and trying to support her through that and support her through the change, because it was right around the time, actually, just before I came in 2016, that she started to make this shift, right, of I am not the business. You might have seen some of her posts about that at the time, right? Yeah. And going through, like, that was a long transition for it to happen. And we went through many iterations of it to make it occur. And so a lot of that lesson just comes out of being involved in that process of helping Breanne make that change.
So one of the challenges that comes up for the spouse who's supporting the entrepreneur, right, is how do I do that? Like, how do I support them when maybe I don't fully understand what's going on in their brain, and maybe they're not expressing it well because they're just going through the journey. And I'm speaking from experience here, so what advice can you give to those spouses who are listening, like Cindy, about navigating that and what to expect? Like, your partner's going a bit crazy or whatever's going on, whatever's manifesting for them. How do you not also dive into that and then also go down, the spiral with them? What's your advice there?
So they're going to be stressed. They're going to be anxious. They're going to be all over the place. And the best thing I can suggest, actually, 2 pieces. These are the 2 biggest pieces for me that helped when I was working through this with Breanne. Number 1, be patient with yourself, because you're going to get frustrated. But number 2, don't try and fix everything. As human beings, we want to fix everything. That's just how societally, that's how we're brought up. We want to fix things, especially for our significant other, right? Because we don't like seeing them in pain. We don't like seeing them stressed. We don't like seeing them whatever. And so we want to get in there and fix it. Well, generally speaking, either, as you said, we don't have a clue what's going on in their head. They don't have a clue what they're doing, those kinds of things. The more we try and fix things, the more frustrated they're going to get, the more stressed they're going to get. And it just turns into this great big cycle, which is why you need to be patient with yourself and just try not to fix. Just be there. And in a lot of ways, you actually end up carrying patience for both of you.
Yeah.
That's a great point. Hey, patient.
Yeah. And you've experienced this.
Definitely a lot. Oh,
you know what I mean? Exactly. Yeah. That look, that expression right there told me.
Yeah. And I think okay, let's go to Breanne, your experience through that, what's sort of been your key takeaway, if you will? I know there's a bunch and you shared those online, but sort of for you to see, I guess, Jill on that side and then you being the one going through it, what did you learn about your relationship? So the business.
It's one of those things where biggest lesson, I mean, it took me 6 years to figure some of this stuff out. And in a lot of ways, it's ever evolving and ever deepening and continuing to grow and shift. And for me, one of the biggest lessons is really that, as we talked about this shift in your identity and the business taking on its own identity, and team, whether that's spouse or other team members, what is the identity of that and how does that relate and how do all those things fit together? But really, for me, the thread that goes through all of that, and this is really the lesson that I've been learning over the last probably 12 months or so through 2018, the lesson has been to not forget, to remember that inside of all of those things are human beings. And that, as we try, this was especially true for me. And I think it's a story for those who are kind of wrapped up in this online business world with all, the internet marketers and the big marketing bros and all of that kind of stuff. You get wrapped up in this world and you begin to hear that the ideal is to remove yourself from the business, right? Remove yourself from the daily operations, whether that's hiring a team or building a program or going evergreen instead of launching. Like the ideal is to remove yourself from the business. And I used to hear that. Mm-hmm. And I used to hear it in the way that meant I need to disconnect who I am and my identity from the identity of the business and who the business is and who the people are on the team and who the clients are. And I used to take that very literally, which is I need to remove myself from the business. And what I've learned is that there's a difference between removing yourself and like completely disconnecting and getting yourself out versus the kind of removing through which you actually evolve and change your relationship with those other things. Because I can still be in relationship with the business. I can be in relationship with the team. I can be in relationship with Jill and with the clients. I can have a relationship that looks very different than it did a year ago or 2 years ago because the business has grown and evolved, but which still is a relationship. It's not that I've disconnected myself from the clients. It's not that I've disconnected from the business, disconnected from Jill. Yeah, business that runs while I'm on holidays, great. And I don't have to like be in there and checking on stuff. Amazing, amazing dream and amazing reality. And you don't have to completely disconnect yourself from all of these things. And in fact, the more you disconnect and you think that that's what it means to grow a business and create a scalable, quote unquote, business, the harder you will find it to actually grow the business. If you want to grow the business, you need to actually connect more, but differently to those different elements and entities. And what that looks like is going to be different for every individual person because we are human beings. And the human beings that we are engaging with in our team, our spouse, our clients, those human beings are different. And so every one of those relationships is going to look different. The way that I've adjusted and adapted to evolve into the next level of Breanne as leader in this business is different than the way Jill is showing up and changing and adapting. It's different than the way our clients are adapting and changing. But the common thread through it all is that we're not disconnecting as much as we're evolving those relationships and shifting into the next level of being together.
So is that an organic evolution, do you feel, or is that something that you consciously sit and you say, well, this is how I'm changing and therefore I need to be able to express this to those people in terms of transparency, I suppose, as a leader? Like, what's your take on that and how have you been able to go through that?
Some people do it naturally. Some people do it accidentally, which is not the same as naturally, because you do it accidentally, chances are you'll screw it up later. Most people don't do it on their own. And this is the role of mentorship, coaching, working with people. As Jill said, she outside could see different things than I could see for myself. And it's not something that, I've done it accidentally. It's not natural for me. It's more natural for Jill than it is for me. But it was a situation where I took it as far as I could. And that's why we were stuck at $200,000 to $300,000 for years. We hit that ceiling, and it wasn't any of the problems that the internet marketers say you have. Like, it wasn't a leads problem. It wasn't a sales problem. It wasn't a pricing problem. It wasn't a business model problem. It wasn't a capacity problem. It wasn't any of those things. It was a problem that I, hearkening way back to the beginning of the conversation and what would I do with more time or money? It was simply a problem that I had not evolved enough in my relationship with myself and all these other entities to be able to lead a business that was bigger than $200,000 or $300,000. Mm-hmm. And I needed mentorship to be able to do that, to be able to hold up a mirror for me, to be able to say, do you see how what you're doing here is you're, cutting off your nose to spite your face? Yeah.
You're speaking to the value of having a strong mirrors who've been through the journey. I think that's the differentiation here between just having a coach or someone like this is, you're talking about someone who's been through, they've been in the trenches themselves. They've gotten to that point. They understand what you're going through. I think the challenge is what I see, at least, of finding the right mentor is, there's a lot of people calling themselves mentors, but then when you sort of dig into, and so my question is, how do you identify the right mentor for you? Because whether you're at the beginning and you're trying to get to the 100K, if that's the first milestone, or you're trying to get to the 300K or to the million, right? So there are different stages of evolution of the entrepreneur or the leader. So how do you find the right mentor for the right time is my question, because I think a lot of people get confused about that.
Yeah. And I think part of the reason we get confused is because we think that revenue is actually a good filter for a mentor, and it's not. Just because a mentor has grown a 7-figure business does not mean that they actually have mastered those things with which you are struggling. We mentor, and our clients are, anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million to $2 million worth of revenue. And, we mentor them to, great effect, because it's not about the revenue level. And for me, personally speaking, I'm going to let Jill answer for herself, but for me, I know that there's someone that I need to pay attention to as a potential mentor for me when I hear them tell a truth that I haven't heard before, but I know is true. Both Jill and I mentioned Phyllis earlier, who's a mentor that we're working with right now. And we had thought we had a lead generation challenge, right? We thought that was the thing that was keeping us at 200,000 to 300,000. I mean, I remember we were on a call and she just looked at me and she said, "Breanne, you don't have a lead generation problem." And I went, I wanted to go immediately to, but you don't understand. Like, clearly I have a lead generation problem. Like, do you not see? And then she told me truth, which I immediately recognized as truth, which is something I hadn't heard before, which is, you don't have a lead generation problem. You have all the leads you need. You just are looking past them to people you can't see right now. And that was something I'd never heard before. And I immediately knew it was true. And I knew that she had been able to apply that principle herself to create shifts. And once I hear that truth, so once someone, whether it's in conversation or on a Facebook post or something, I hear a truth for them, it's like, I didn't even know that was true until you just said it.
Yeah.
I move as quickly as possible to, either hire that mentor or whatever, because once I've heard that truth, then I know that, oh yeah, you have something. I've said this to mentors in the past. I don't know what it is, but you have something that I need right now. I don't know what it is. And that's why you're going to mentor me. That's why I'm going to pay you a lot of money, because you have something that I don't know. I don't fully understand this. If I fully understand what you're telling me, I don't want you to mentor me. Right? I want you to tell me something. I want you to see something that I don't see. Because for me, mentorship is about a different way of seeing the world. I can get skills and tactics and all of that from anyone else. I want someone who's going to show me a different way of seeing truth in the world.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's great. How about you, Jill?
So everything that Breanne said, but also for me, when I'm looking for a mentor, I'm looking for someone that not only I can relate to, but they can relate to me. Because from a personality perspective, I've had mentors in the past where we just didn't relate and we didn't get along. And what ended up happening was that their truth got lost in the conflict between our personalities.
Ooh, that is very important.
Right? Because it could even just be how they relate, how they communicated with you. Certain people, sometimes for me, they're just too much in my face. Mm-hmm. Sorry. I just can't take something in. I can't be in a receptive state if you are up in front of my face all the time. It just doesn't work. That's just not who I am. And so for me, it's everything that Breanne said, plus I have to be able to relate to them. I have to be able, not even just relate's a bit of a whimsical word. I have to be able to communicate with them, and they have to be able to communicate with me. Like we talked about Breanne and I and terminology being an issue.
Yeah.
Right? If I can't talk to them on the same level, if I can't talk to them using the same language, they can't tell me that truth.
That's true.
And so that doesn't help.
You are listening to the Founders Connect podcast, helping lifestyle entrepreneurs to grow their business online and create a happier marriage. Now back to the show.
So you've got me thinking about how do you, I don't know if qualify is the right word, but how do you base your decision around the right mentor? Are you looking for someone, because Breanne said something interesting about why I want someone who's able to show me a different way of seeing and potentially a different way of being. And then what you've said, Jill, is, but I also want them to speak the same language as me. So, to me, that's almost a contradiction, because you want someone who's different to you, but then you want someone who's like you. How does that work?
So yes, and you can have the same language and still see things differently. You can also see things differently and be able to teach someone a different language.
That's what I was going to say. The gift of a great mentor is that they see differently and that they can then translate that different vision into a frame that you will be able to operate within. Because one of the things that I love, learning background is we all start off being unconscious of just how incompetent we are. We don't know what we don't know, right? Yeah. We don't know what we don't know. And then we move into a place where we start to become aware of just how much we don't know. Then we start to move toward a place where we know how much we know. And eventually we move into a place where we've forgotten how much we actually know. And
we can't conceptualize it.
Yeah. The best mentors are actually not the people who have forgotten just how much they know. They're actually not the people who have gone all the way, because when they're at that point, they're subject so much to the curse of expertise that they can't translate it, or maybe they never were fully aware of how they made that transition, and so they can't guide someone else through it. Whereas instead, if you get someone who is at that level where they are consciously competent, they know what they know what to do, they know how they did it, and they can also translate that back to be able to say, I know you don't see this yet. And that's, a lot of my job with our clients, that's my job, is to hold the vision. Jill's job is to translate that vision and turn it into, here's how we're going to make it happen. My job is to say, I know you don't see this yet, but I see this for you. And here's how it relates to where you are right now. And if they can feel that connection, if I can feel that connection between, oh, you get where I am and you see something that I don't see because you see it differently, then I know there's something there. And that's something that I can work with it.
Love it. That's great. And did you learn a lot, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, we definitely learned so much. Just off topic. So what's the moment when you knew Jill, Breanne was the person for you that you want for life?
Oh, well, this is interesting because this goes back to how we met.
Oh, so yes.
We actually met. We were both doing over summer studies research grant with the same professor. And we fought like cats and dogs.
No way.
Yeah, total way. One of the other.
I'm not stubborn. What? I'm not stubborn.
One of the other individuals who was also doing a research grant with the same prof said it was like watching a tennis match between the two of us when we got going.
Oh.
And so when did I know that she was the one? Honestly, I always knew it on some level. I just wasn't conscious about it because it was one of those things where even when we were fighting, it wasn't ever mean. Honestly, I loved fighting with her.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. Exciting.
Yeah, like I loved it. It was fun. But yeah, sure, I got frustrated because she's stubborn. That's just... It works.
Well, she's owning it, so that's important.
She's owning it. Yeah, totally.
Self-awareness, right?
Yeah.
Self-awareness through this process.
But we kind of fell into it, really. We just, everything, it was just one step after another. And it was just, we fell into being together. We fell into the relationship and we just kept going. It was like, it was so easy.
So easy. There you go.
Except when it wasn't easy.
Yeah.
Except when you got stubborn.
How about you, Breanne?
So the question is, when did I know that Jill was the one?
Yes.
My answer is that I rediscover it every day.
Oh, that's sweet.
So it's not, because, as Jill said, it wasn't, we did fall into the relationship, whole history, cultural challenges, family challenges, being in a same-sex relationship, and that blindsided me. I never would have thought that for myself to be the case. It took me longer, I think, to accept myself in the relationship and to accept that I was the one who was going to be in this relationship than it ever took to accept that Jill was going to be the one in the relationship. It was more about me. Did I accept that I was going to be the one in this relationship? And that's why for me, a little bit of an awe response, but for me, I discover it every day because it has to be, because every day I'm a different person. Every day she's a different person. And we grow into that together. And that's what reveals to me that, yeah, today's a good day when I have Jill by my side.
So you choose Jill every day, basically.
Every single day.
I so resonate with both your answers because I think it is a sense of knowing, and that's not always conscious until, like for us, it was actually when Sydney was trying to break up with me in a park, and we both ended up in tears. And it was raining. It really was a Hollywood movie when that happened. And then it's this, I read this before we got married, was, it's an action and it's a verb, and it's a constant choosing and reminding yourself that it is a choice, and you have to tell yourself that I am choosing her, or him every single day, and why you're choosing them. So thank you for sharing that. And
thank you.
Yeah, we've got all the feels going on right now.
I love it.
Okay, we're going to wrap this up because we could go on forever. And I have a zillion questions for you on the business side, because that's where my brain's at. And I know Cindy's all about the relationship.
It was fun.
Yeah.
I like it.
How about we just end with these 2 questions, and then we will say thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. What's one book or resources that's not mentioned or rarely mentioned that made a significant impact in your life or business life, Jill?
She's going to give the same answer as me, I think. Oh, maybe not. She's looking like she doesn't know what she can answer. What's she gonna
I'm actually going to say it depends. Depends on what aspect of business and life you're talking about. Probably one of the best ones from both a business and personal perspective, if I was going to boil it down to just one, is a book called Power of Receiving. And
that was going to be my pick as well.
I remember the author.
Owen,
right. I don't know why I can never remember that author's name. Yeah, that one for sure, I think for me is, from a holistic standpoint, covering everything, definitely a really good resource.
Yeah, that was going to be mine as well. Power of Receiving by Owen.
Beat you to it. You have to pick another one.
No, I don't.
Yes, that's right. I'm exactly like you that way.
How did that impact you, Jill, and how did that impact you, Breanne? Because both can read the same book, but you might take away different things.
So for me, it was the idea behind receiving isn't just an action, it's more of a state of being. Being receptive is an action in and of itself. But when you're actually doing action, when you're trying to receive, you're not actually in receiving.
For me, one of the biggest gifts of the book Power of Receiving was language, common language that we can use. We find ourselves often just, talking about, what's the monster saying? What's going on in the little circle? Does Cinderella need to go to rehab? All of which won't make any sense to anyone who hasn't read the book. But there are things that for me gave language to. It's actually recommended to me by a friend who's like the least woo person ever. And he's like, this is a book on woo for non-woo people. It's like a manifestation book for people who aren't into manifestation. Yeah. And I was like, great, let me read this book because Jill's way more woo than I am. It's like, I need something here. For me, that's what it's about on the surface, but underneath it, it really is about a way of approaching your again, we're using the word relationship a lot, but a way of approaching the relationship that you have with yourself, with your goals, with the things you're pursuing, and with the things that you're allowing. And it's giving me a vocabulary for things that I've known to be true, but haven't been able to express. And it's also opened me up to different ways of thinking about things that I now know to be true, but maybe I wouldn't have seen before because it was always locked away in the, that sounds kind of woo for me kind of bucket.
Yeah. So what's sort of coming to my mind right now is, when are we actually taught how to receive? Right. Like, I don't remember that being taught in school or in, wherever. Like, even this, for a long time, I'm probably still there thinking about, we keep hearing this, learning to let it go. But what the F does that mean? Like, I don't know, on a practical sense, on a spiritual sense, like what does that even look like, right?
Or even the cultural concept. It's a biblical concept. So, of course, it's permeated Western culture for sure, which is it is better to give than to receive. Well, guess what? You can't give if someone isn't receiving. And so how do we learn to be good receivers, even not in like a big manifestation, woo, universe type of stuff? How can I be a better receiver with Jill?
Yeah.
Right? How can I receive from clients? How can I receive from the business? How can I receive from myself in all of those ways?
There's also an honesty component too. I'm reminded of a particular example they gave in the book about, from a cultural perspective, we're being taught to always present this face of everything is good, everything is fine. Like most people, you ask how they're doing. Oh, I'm fine. How's that job search going? Oh, it's going okay. If someone had said that to me, maybe I had a suggestion for them. I knew of a job opening, right? Somewhere that they would have been great for. And if I'm being told, oh, it's okay, it's under control, I might think, well, they've got this handled. They don't need my suggestion. right? So they're not even open at that point because they're just putting up this face that we're just taught is how you interact with society in general.
Very powerful.
Exactly. So after all said and done, what do you want to be remembered for, Jill?
You guys keep picking on me first here. I think Breanne.
Because we resonate. Come on.
I mean, you resonate with Jill. I resonate with Breanne.
And they know that if they let me talk first, Jill won't get a chance to give her answer.
Oh, come on. I'd elbow my way in.
Oh, yeah, we have our
what do I want to be remembered for? I want to be remembered for being there for people.
Mm.
For business is fine, but I want to be there for people. I want to be there for the founders. I want to be there for my friends. I want to be there for my family. I am very service-oriented as a personality. I don't know if you caught that in some of my answers here, but I'm quite service-oriented as a personality, and I like helping people. I like supporting people, and I like seeing people grow for themselves, which is why the business is such a natural extension for me, because growing themselves is growing the business in a lot of cases. Or growing the business is growing themselves because it can be a mirror.
Yes.
So I want to be remembered for helping people grow by being there for them.
Thank you. Breanne.
Well, since Jill gave the more holistically well-rounded human being answer, that leaves me to give the answer. It's true, though, because for me, like I said, kind of off the top, favorite quote, life's philosophy is there's always a better way. And for where I'm at right now, and the way that I am expressing that is through the business and the pursuit of continuing excellence through the business, of always finding that better way. And what I want to be remembered, what I want to leave as a legacy is I want to have built a 6-star out of 5-star company in every aspect that is known for building and helping other entrepreneurs transform from being these online entrepreneurs, online business types, to being the owners of sustainable, scalable, change-making 6-star out of 5-star companies themselves. I want to build this 6-star out of 5-star company that creates a movement and a groundswell of 6-star out of 5-star companies that change the world, each in their own unique and special way.
Power couple.
Cindy's falling in love with you. You didn't know what that face was. Yeah, we'll have to go hang out with them when we're in the US.
Oh,
okay. All right. So
that's so cool.
Thank you so much, both of you, Breanne and Jill, for your presence and your candor and just how you show up in the world and how you show up in this interview. We admire and respect you both for what you're doing and also how you relate to each other. And that's really, for us, the key to success, if you will, is, like you say, Breanne, it's about the relationships and then how we relate and learn to relate to ourselves as well as to the people around us. So just wanted to thank you both for sharing your time and your space and your wisdom with us. And for everyone else listening, go ahead and check out, where can people find your work and connect with you guys?
It's really a good question. If you want to kind of go the old school to say, you can go to our website. You can go to MNIBconsulting.com. Or just come on over to Facebook and you can look us up, MNIB Consulting there, or you can look up me. Jill doesn't do too much Facebooky, but me or the business both will get you connected with both of us on the Facebooks or via our website.
Beautiful.
Ooh.
All right. So let's say thank you, everyone. Subscribe and share. And yes, we'll put links to all the websites and things on our show notes. And Jill and Breanne, thank you again for blessing us with your gifts today.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
So that was our interview with Breanne Dyck and Jill Joevenazzo from MNIB Consulting. What was your key takeaway, Cindy?
You should distinguish your relationships with the company, yourself, your partner,
Your clients.
Your clients, yes. And that's very important to keep everything insane. And also that you need to grow so the company can grow.
Yeah. And in addition to that, how fast or big you grow, the business grows, is in direct correlation, relationship with how you as an individual, as a leader, grow within the company and outside the company, which is really powerful.
That's mine, you did. Now you need to get yours.
Okay, well, mine really is that the topic was really about structuring your business for dramatic yet sustainable scale. And one of the things that Breanne talks about is there's this myth specifically with online businesses, and that a lot of focus is really on generating a lot of leads and putting sales funnels together and taking people through a buyer journey and all these sort of things. But when we sort of chase after the revenue, $100,000, $200,000, $1 million, whatever it may be, we're actually focused on the wrong things, right? Like we need to be focusing on how are we able to actually go through that transition from each stage of the business ourselves to make sure that we don't fall apart. So a big part of structuring a business for dramatic yet sustainable scale is really understanding being self-aware and understanding yourself and putting the right people around you, like key mentors and your business partner or your team members or your partners and whatever it may be, to make sure that you are able to scale sustainably at the same time. Because if you fall apart, then guess what? The business falls apart. And it's not about, as Jill says, it's not about just disconnecting yourself from the business, but it's more about how your relationship with all the different identities evolves. Okay, so that's something to really pay attention to with that. So that's my takeaway, and that was a really interesting and powerful conversation, and I look forward to learning more as we go along.
That was awesome, darling.
Okie dokie. And I hope that's been a valuable conversation for you to listen to as well. And I'd love to hear what your key takeaway is. If you want to leave a review for us, on iTunes or Stitcher with your feedback, that would be really, really awesome.
Are you thinking about leaving your job, taking control of your own destiny, and turning your passion and experience into a side hustle or full-time business? Well, check out our new Corporate Escape Plan PDF guide.
It's free, and you will learn the top 10 challenges for new entrepreneurs and what you can do to overcome them. Just head over to foundersconnect.co/escape to grab the free checklist now.
Yeah, do it.
In our next episode, we're talking about unconscious marriage expectations.
Thanks for tuning in, and remember to live passionately,
purposefully,
and confidently. Till next time.